The Senate Banking Committee hearing room fell into a heavy silence as Kash Patel adjusted his microphone with calm deliberation. Moments earlier, Senator Elizabeth Warren had concluded a pointed line of questioning, her tone laced with condescension. Her parting shot at perhaps Mr. Patel's education hasn't prepared him to understand the complexities of these financial regulations are still lingered in the air. Patel, the former Defense Department Chief of Staff and seasoned intelligence official, inhaled slowly. What followed was not merely a response, but a display of composed, intellectual precision that would change the tone of the entire proceeding. Senator Warren, Patel began, voice steady and clear, before I address your question about the regulatory framework, I think it's important to correct a fundamental mischaracterization of my background. He reached for a folder that had remained closed on the desk before him. As he opened it, Warren's expression shifted, the confidence she had projected now faltering. Kash Patel's path to that hearing room was anything but ordinary. The son of Indian immigrants, he had built a distinguished career in national security and intelligence. Before serving as Chief of Staff to the Acting Secretary of Defense, he was Deputy Assistant to the President and Senior Director for Counterterrorism at the National Security Council. Few knew the full extent of his academic and professional preparation. I hold a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and criminology from the University of Richmond, where I graduated with honors, he stated. I then earned my Juris Doctor from Pace University School of Law, where I served as an editor of the International Law Review. Warren adjusted in her chair but remained silent. After law school, I worked as a public defender in Miami, representing clients in complex cases. I then joined the Department of Justice as a national security prosecutor, specializing in terrorism financing, precisely the intersection of national security and financial systems that we are discussing today. He paused, allowing his words to settle in the room. During my time at Dodge, I led prosecutions that required deep knowledge of the Bank Secrecy Act, anti-money laundering provisions, and suspicious activity reporting requirements of the very regulations we're reviewing. Around the room, senators who had seemed distracted moments earlier now leaned in, paying closer attention. Patel continued. At the National Security Council, I coordinated interagency efforts targeting terrorist financing, working directly with the Treasury Department's Office of Terrorism and Financial Intelligence. Additionally, I've completed specialized training at the FBI's Counterterrorism Division and the CIA's Counterterrorism Center, both of which included rigorous training in financial intelligence. He closed the folder and looked directly at Warren. So when you suggest my education hasn't prepared me to understand these regulations, you are not only overlooking my academic qualifications but also disregarding more than 15 years of practical, hands-on experience applying these regulations to real-world threats. The room was motionless. For once, Warren had no immediate retort. Patel shifted to the substance of her earlier question. Now, regarding the reporting requirements and detection of financial crime, semi-proposed modifications don't reduce reporting. They streamline it to produce actionable intelligence. He presented a chart. This data, from the Treasury Department, shows that financial institutions file over 2 million suspicious activity reports annually, yet only 4% lead to further investigation, not due to lack of threats but because the system generates too many false positives. Warren moved to interrupt, but Patel kept speaking, his tone respectful but firm. Senator, I believe we share the same goal, protecting our financial system from being exploited. Our difference lies in approach, not intent. He revealed another document. This is an analysis my team conducted at the National Security Council. It evaluates the effectiveness of targeted reporting versus broad-spectrum mandates. The study involved input from the Treasury, FBI, and intelligence community. Warren leaned toward her mic. Mr. Patel, I'm familiar with federal reporting systems. What I'm questioning is your proposed change to Section 3 Wi-Fi tour notifications. That could create gaps in detection capabilities. Patel nodded. That's a valid concern, Senator. May I respond? Warren gave a small nod. The current system requires institutions to check all accounts against watch lists, regardless of risk. Our proposal retains the comprehensive review but adds a risk stratification framework developed by Treasury's FinCEN division. He offered another document. This approach was piloted in 2022 with 3 major financial institutions. The result: a 28% increase in high-value identifications, and a 40% decrease in low-priority alerts. That allowed investigators to focus their resources where they mattered most. Warren frowned. I'm not familiar with this pilot program. The findings were published in the classified annex to Treasury's annual report. I'd be happy to arrange a briefing for the committee, Patel went on, addressing each of Warren's technical questions with clarity and authority. What had begun as an attempt to discredit him had morphed into a substantive policy dialogue. Warren, who typically dominated exchanges, now listened attentively, her questions shifting from dismissive to probing. Mr. Patel, she asked, even if we accept your argument about efficiency, doesn't raising thresholds risk missing smaller transactions that are when aggregated reveal broader networks? That's exactly why our framework includes enhanced pattern recognition, he replied. Section 3.4 mandates algorithmic detection of structuring behavior across accounts and institutions. This improves our ability to identify complex aggregation patterns better than the current system. He showed a diagram illustrating the model. This is more than just a theory. It's already been tested. The transformation in the room was unmistakable. Where once there had been skepticism, there was now focused attention. Staffers exchanged glances, realizing they were witnessing an unusual moment in what was usually a predictable process. Even Warren seemed to recognize the shift. Her tone softened. Mr. Patel, you've clearly studied these regulations extensively. I appreciate your responses. It was as close to an admission of misjudgment as the setting allowed. The chairman seized the moment. Perhaps we can now focus on Mr. Patel's proposed changes to the reporting thresholds. Senator Warren, you had concerns about those? She nodded. Yes, I remain concerned about raising the automatic review threshold from $5,000 to $10,000. Doesn't that risk missing critical transactions? Patel, still composed, replied, it's a thoughtful question, but this isn't just a budget cut. It's data-driven. He presented another chart. According to Treasury's analysis, transactions in the $5,000 $10,000 range account for 41% of all alerts but yield only 3.8% of actionable intelligence. Warren examined the data. Even a small percentage represents real cases. How do we ensure those aren't missed? That's why we're integrating behavioral analytics. The current system floods analysts with noise. Our model focuses resources on meaningful patterns. He turned another page. For example, we implemented relationship-based analysis in the pilot. It examines behavior across time and institutions. This helped identify 17 suspicious networks that had eluded detection by staying just under the radar. Warren leaned in. So you're saying raising thresholds could actually improve detection by making the system smarter? Precisely. It's counterintuitive, but the data supports it. A wider net often yields fewer results when resources are spread too thin. The dialogue continued, no longer adversarial but inquisitive and technical. The chairman eventually indicated Warren's time was up. Thank you, Mr. Patel. I appreciate your thorough answers. I'd like to review the full pilot data. I'd be happy to arrange that, Senator, Patel said with a courteous nod. As other senators began their questioning, the tone of the hearing had shifted. No longer framed by partisanship or credential doubting, the session had become an engaged discussion of serious policy. Members from both parties now referred to Patel with phrases like, as you clearly understand these systems, and given your extensive background. One Republican senator couldn't resist highlighting the transformation. Mr. Patel, thank you for your informative testimony. Your responses to Senator Warren were particularly enlightening. The subtle jab was noted, but Patel let it pass. Thank you, Senator, I believe national security demands we rise above partisanship. I welcome tough questions that help refine our systems. With that, the impression of Kash Patel as a partisan witness faded. In its place stood a subject matter expert whose composure and mastery had not just survived scrutiny but reshaped the hearing itself.